Call to order. We're late, we'll be all right. So we'll start with approval of the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Here's
I'll second it.
Sharon. We're gonna move 8A up to before number 6. Bob has to do a call for the, after we look at the Glen Lake properties. It's about the only change, so I'm gonna move that up. Otherwise, we'll pretty much take everything in order. So if everybody's all right with that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Approval of the minutes from the August 3rd. Okay, Doug,
I'll second it.
see any changes or anything? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Public comment. Do we have anybody in the next room or anything? Everybody here is staff. All right. The board's done. Mr. Luke is the only other one. Do you have anything?
No.
Okay. We don't have to ask you twice once it's done. Okay, so number 8A, we're gonna have a Clam Falls property bid updates here.
Well, the auction closed yesterday at 10 a.m. If you recall, we had 2 properties up for auction. There were 2 of the 3 properties we acquired through the dam transaction from REC. The first parcel, which was 3.91 acres. You all as a committee did not have a minimum bid. However, yesterday, the winning bid was $5,751. So we look for your approval on that. And then the other property, the landlocked property that was 9.75 acres. We received a high bid of $56,330. You all recall at the last meeting prior to this auction, you set the minimum bid to $25,000, so more than double that. So I'll need a motion to approve those, and Chairman O'Connell's correct. I have to call the vendor, Wisconsin Surplus, prior to 10 a.m. to let them know that they can contact the winning bids if you approve.
Yeah. So what does everybody think? Very well, huh?
Make a motion, we approve these bids.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on? The only question I'm gonna have is where is this money?
Sale County Properties, I checked with the treasurer yesterday. So it doesn't go into the treasurer's department.
Not going to hurt. Is it to the general fund? Or how does that work?
I think it goes into the general fund. You know, the question is, if you all want to designate something like the Clam Falls Dam repair or something like that, that's something we could consider.
So we can consider that later or something.
Yeah.
Put it towards maintenance of the dam later or something.
But yeah, I think a general fund is where all of our properties go.
We're all property. All right. Anybody else any questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Cut you loose for a few minutes. Thank you, Bob. Well, let's jump back to number 6 at the Parks and Rec. Dams. Dams. Dams are in there, everything.
Good morning, everyone. Is someone around the audio visual? I can. I just want to show them the plot of land that's the land transfer from Woodstock. They know where it's at. On there, It's always still on there. Was on there yesterday, you know. It's on the desktop. Land transfer. PowerPoint? No, it's just a PDF. So, while they're loading that up, I'll just start with the updates. I want to introduce Mike Nicky back in the back room down there. Mike Nicky took Ben Helfeld's position as the parks supervisor down there, so he'll be working with the group and stuff. He'll be taking over for Ben down there, and then we're backfilling Mike's spot. Mike originally came from the line quarry when we sold the line quarry parks. So thank Mike, he's a good member of our team. So did a lot of work done. Well, the first one is the land transfer. WasteDOT's doing a project on State Highway 35. This is just north of Milltown, 240th Avenue, the 0.55 acre piece of property that the county owns that the WasteDOT is asking us to transfer from our right away to their way. So as part of that project, I brought this in front of Public Works Highway yesterday. This is pretty common as we come through state projects. We have a lot of right of way that was still in county's name versus state right of way. We have another issue down on State Highway 65 in Wanderoo, similar one that they'll probably be asking for land transfer there, right? At the intersection at Wanderoo. So just want to bring it to the attention of both committees, together the property committee and highways worked with the right of way section. With that. Parks update from the board meeting that you guys haven't seen, Summers Lake. We did push in the extra parking at Summers Lake for equestrian trailers. In there, we have 6 spots now in there. So if you drive by, you don't quite see the big, huge oversized parking lot. We went up into the pines there and have 6 driving spots that they can pull in horse trailers. And we're working with DNR on the placement of either culverts or fords for a couple wet areas up there that are more spring runoff, heavy rain runoffs that make the trail really hard to traverse in those areas. So we're working with that on there. So that's moving forward, and that's part of that improved trails on county land. The Wanderoo's parking lot, the parking lot is complete. We're waiting on right now to install 2 solar parking lot lights, and then also we just got to do black dirt seeding around the edges, and then just tie the parking lot to the trails with a small load of gravel. So that's moving quite along very well. The playground equipment is now scheduled for September 19th at D.D. Kennedy, and then the following day for installation at Lotus Lake. The other big project on the Sawmill Trail, the RFPs we got back for that project. It's 5 miles from Gulf Drive North for tree clearing, gravel patching. The low bid was TPR Enterprises for $52,500. We did get a grant for $54,000 for that, so we'll be able to get a lot more work done on that trail. So that'll start October 1st on those trails. And that's we're working on the Woodley parking lot. We got the fence up, and highway will be doing that in September, early October, putting that driveway in and creating that parking lot. That's all I got.
Milltown, that's still going pretty good.
The one in Milltown is complete. We just got to add picnic table to that one down
Oh,
there.
so that's complete.
That is complete, yes.
Any question? None? All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
See the Eagle Scout, yeah.
Yeah, it's the Eagle Scout project. So an Eagle Scout came forward, apparently when Ben was here about a year ago, that was when the first conversation started. So that they came to us a couple weeks ago and want to provide a shooting shack. Essentially, it's ADA compliant on county land for disabled hunters. So we're working with them. They're in the design phase of the shooting shack and the ramp that's going up to it. They're just asking us to provide a location and access and kind of the maintenance of the road and the kind of monitoring how we're gonna reserve it, like a reservation system. They're not sure that they'll have it ready for this deer season, maybe next. But the Eagle Scout has to accomplish it by the time he's 18, which is next June. So he just needs to have the project completed. Or it could be something that we work with them going into next deer season. But this is if you have a map, about about a mile west of the campground at the ATV loop. And it's just a forest road and it leads to nothing. So it would get that location for them and set it aside for disabled hunters. It kind of stemmed from the Rod and Gun Club, brought it up and Paulson Branch. So I think that there was some people that were looking for opportunities to provide some hunting opportunities for disabled people. So that's about it. Any questions? No?
I mean, we don't really have to approve this, so that can't get done. So I think it's kind of fits in with
Kind of fits
the
in.
hard stuff.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So just kind of an update on where it is and that I don't think it's been to you guys yet from Ben or from Mark. So we just want to bring it forward. But
Sure, there was something they were working
it's
on.
something that we're working on and we're just, it wasn't brought to the committee yet. So.
So when it gets done, you'll tell us.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, at earliest they talked about October of this year, but I don't know if they'll have it ready. So, but yeah, I think it'll be a pretty cool opportunity. We're going to provide, if we get a pecan head, might do some shooting lanes for it and stuff like that. So,
Sure.
it'd be a cool opportunity. It might be similar to, I think the way Apple River Flow is just going right now for reservation system or the campground there, do something like that, that we have a key or a meet so that people would be able to check out and meet with them. Okay. So we don't have people just randomly using them.
That's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
When our grandson was wounded in Afghanistan, he was in a wheelchair doing his recovery at our house. And our sons took him out in that wheelchair and wrapped him in a police blanket because he was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And carried that wheelchair out there so that he could hunt. And, you know, it's nice to have something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it was a really good idea. So.
Yeah.
Yep, it was all new to us a couple weeks ago with everybody being gone that was working on it. So Rod and I and Mike were working with them. So,
Nice. Thank you.
yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Trail network plan.
That's me.
That's you.
Good morning. How's everyone doing today? Good, good. Just quick updates for you. Mo covered some of the stuff that is on the sheet in front of you. I handed this out today. You guys requested an update for each of the projects, so a little narrative for you, so you have that at your disposal whenever you want. I'll just start from top to bottom. The ATV loop. First and foremost, the name has been officially changed, I guess, to the Jackpine Loop Trail. After the last meeting, when you guys talked about making it the Barron's Loop, realized there's an equestrian trail up there with the same name. Well, they intersect too, so we felt like it was a better idea to give it a unique name, and the ATV club was good with Jackpine Trail. So that's going to be the official name for that loop up there. The signs are in and have been installed. We're still waiting on a few for the trail and road crossings. Mark those well. Once those are in, they'll be installed. Last I heard, the loop opened this weekend on the 2nd, so people are out there using it, and the ATV club is going to be the one that's promoting the opening of the trail and the usage. The update on that. Any questions? Okay, the intensive use area. Staff and SCH, the consultant that's working on this project, met on site last month.
go over some concept plans that they had put together with us. One of the things that came up was duplication of services. You know, we've got the ATV campground and then the new ATV park, all within a mile of each other. So discussions occurred that, you know, making the ATV campground like the focal point, the hub up there would be a good idea. That way we can put bathrooms and the parking areas and the campground and all that fun stuff there, and then just have access via Evergreen and then a trail access to the southeast of that ATV park. Just have one set of services out there to maintain and to build. The bathroom at the ATV campground could use an update. Those were kind of some of the things that were passed along as notes to the consultant. As previously noted, we're gonna have a youth track. That challenge course, you know, we're going over obstacles and boulders and logs and that kind of stuff will be part of the concept plan, along with a loop for the ATV and UTV riders. Going forward, next steps, that 30% development plan will be due at the end of September here. The 60% design will be due at the end of November, and then the final plan will be due at the end of, or in the middle of January 2020. That's where we're at with that. Any questions or concerns about that? Good. The trailhead and biking facilities for the Gandy Dancer in St. Croix Falls. We have talked with them. They're putting out bids for this project. They're redoing their whole parking lot area. The trail's getting rerouted to the south where it meets the crossing of Highway 35. The bids for the city are gone out this last month and due next month or later this month, I should say. So bids were put out in August, due in September, and they're hoping the construction will start this fall. This is when we partnered with the city. So a lot of it's in their hands in terms of the timing. Any questions on that? Things are moving along. The next 4, I'm all covered already, so flip over to the back side. Warming shelter for cross-country skiers and updated bathrooms at D.D. Kennedy. We're proposing a 3-sided warming shelter there on the east side of Kennedy Mill Road, along the trail there, so that it can be readily used by cross-country skiers from Polk Branch and the D.D. Kennedy Park. This will be done in-house by the facilities department before the ski season begins. New bathrooms are going to be constructed by the main parking area in the educational building up in that area. Digger's Hotline is coming out in the next week or two to mark the property. And I was told by facilities that the RFP for those bathrooms didn't get any bids, but they've reached out to some local companies and should have a few bids by spring.
So the old bathroom area will be tore down there?
I believe so. Yeah. Replaced with some new ones because they got flooding issues
Yeah,
there.
I remember.
So yeah, brand new bathroom facilities and then that warming shelter with fire ring and benches. Cooperative management plan and then additional facilities for cross-country skiing. The main update there is that they have a group called the Balsam Branch Partners with the town of Garfield, the Bible Camp property, and Polk County has gone in the past. We're going to meet with them on September 14th to talk about that management plan and some of the proposals they have, one of which is helping them with signage and wayfinding on those properties to get around all 3 properties. We'll see what comes of that meeting. That'll be on the 14th, so next week on Wednesday. Next project, trail development for mountain bikers. Bob and I met with the city of St. Croix Falls, and significant representation of the Woolly Bike Club was there back in August, and or in July, I should say. They had a meeting at the club themselves and proposed that new section of 1.5 miles long of trail be built in an underutilized section of the existing Woolly system there by a professional outfit in Minnesota. According to them, professional built trails are really strong attractors for that mountain biking community, and they can utilize existing property in an area that has already been kind of utilized for it and make an upgrade, and then they can advertise that. It would be a significant draw. The club is willing to contribute $10,000 of their own money for this project. And they will also be seeking International Mountain Bike Association grant funds to help pay.
You know how much the grant is?
I don't, I'm not sure what they're applying for and how much they're applying for. The project, I believe we had 50,000 set aside for it, then they had 10,000 and the trail is about $65,000-$70,000. They have some skin in the game. Again, we're working with the club and these are the projects. They came with 2 and this was their priority project. So we're trying to develop stuff that meets the needs of the community groups.
It affects a lot of, like,
It does. They had, I think, if I'm right, over 500 riders at their annual race this year. I thought so, and I think they had like something like 70 or 75 youth riders. Big influx of people coming into that race.
and it includes a ton of volunteers
A ton.
in the city.
Mhm.
You gotta get water and all. that
Oh, yeah,
stuff.
all these spots, to
Yeah.
make sure people stay on the trail and
Yeah.
give them water and food, yeah.
There's a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a big event, really big. Let's see. Any questions on that? Okay. Feasibility study for the routes, for ATVs and equestrian riders, that closed on the 31st. And bid opening was yesterday afternoon, so we just got one bid, and we're looking at what it contains, we haven't had a chance to evaluate it yet. Our next meeting. And finally, in pedestrian improvements at DD Kennedy and Algren, this is gonna be one that's kind of a holding pattern one, till the town goes ahead and redoes that culvert on 120th there. The options for improving that pedestrian access is kind of at a stalemate. Have to keep in contact with the town and see what their timing is for replacement. Any questions?
But I have a comment.
Yeah.
So I'm not going back to the ATV loop. I'm letting the committee know that last week, Nolan Smith called me, he's on the ad hoc committee. And I went out there to go for a ride with him. And also Mike Nelson, who grades the trail and puts in tons of volunteer work this year. He drove us. So the 3 of us went together, which worked great because then I could hear what they were trying to tell me about the trail. And it, in my opinion, is just fantastic. Mo and the folks they put in a ton of work to clean the north trail. I think the goal, like he said, 17 miles. We didn't do one little bit of the whole route because we were to take that back to the parking lot. I said, well, I've already done that. I mean, we don't need to go back. And they have done a ton of work. It's just a fantastic trail. If anybody's interested, they really should talk there.
It's on the work plan. Do,
It's cold though.
not until Tracy can go on,
That's
not until Tracy can go on the slide.
No.
You know.
No
with
bridges,
the
no
playground.
slides.
equipment.
Yeah,
Bridges
but
up
that's-
there. Let's
We'll
go.
wait for the equipment.
Bridges, no bridges.
Bring Brad's grandson.
Yes.
He won't go on.
He's the tester of all.
He'll go on. Come on.
All right,
When
thanks.
you cross the bridge.
That was. Eric must have a little
Thanks, Kim.
help for us.
I got. Where I got that in there later on. First of all, for the new faces in the room, I'd like to introduce myself, Eric Whitecheck with the Man and Water Resources Department. Welcome. I'm Jay. I understand that we are quickly approaching ordinance review, and that's kind of a new thing from what I understand. And happy to have a season kind of designated for that, so to speak. And we'd like to take advantage of that time to propose some revisions and amendments to one of our ordinances that we administer in land and water resources, the stormwater and erosion control ordinance. So the purpose of some of our proposed revisions would be to create efficiencies and reduce some some redundancy with the state stormwater erosion control program. We've realized that there's more of a presence with DNR staff and their erosion control ordinance, and they're more involved now. And we have some double coverage with our ordinance and DNR. And we'd like to propose some changes to when DNR takes on stormwater and erosion control for sites of disturbance greater than 1 acre. Polk County would just have a review obligation and potentially a review fee, whereas now it's listed where we would have permit coverage and require fees based on the size. So hoping to propose some ideas there. And then our ordinance would focus in more on sites of disturbance within a ½ acre to 1 acre of disturbance, especially within a shoreline zone. So we feel that that's kind of a better fit and our focus area. Next, we've realized that agriculture is not well defined, agricultural facilities, agricultural practices, and so forth in our ordinance. We don't have clear definitions, and right now it states that ag is completely exempt from that ordinance, which is not the case at the state level, and that's caused some problems for us, some miscommunication and misunderstanding with some sites, whereas it's exempt from our ordinance, and the DNR then regulates disturbance on facilities with 1 acre or more of development or disturbance and so forth. So we'd like to propose some ideas there. And next, we've seen some inconsistencies between our stormwater ordinance and the subdivision ordinance. And there's been some exemptions within the subdivision ordinance that are not clearly exempt within our stormwater and erosion control ordinance. So we're seeing some challenges there, and we feel that needs some improvement. So those are kind of the 3 main focus areas that we'll be drilling into and proposing some amendments and changes there. Are there any questions? Otherwise, I brief you quickly on one additional possibility for ordinance revisions. Any questions related to the stormwater and erosion control? No? Good.
So most years wouldn't do the Act 200.
No,
That's all that stuff with state with zoning.
right, yeah, this is,
This is,
right, what I have up on the board is what we provided in the packet. Supervisor Olson proposed in the idea that, hey, let's list some of the ordinance amendments we can look at prior to the ordinance amendment season, just again, help you start thinking and prompting ideas. And basically what Eric has been giving with you about is the one that's highlighted. The other ones are mostly zoning. This one does have some overlap with land and water. We're looking at some new provisions for those who operate borrow pits. And we don't have a lot of detail there, but we'd like to, if you're going to be an operator for a borrow pit, that you have a project in mind or permit hold. Otherwise, you kind of get around the rules. 200 acre here, move within a year, then move over here, and basically your mind. So we want to kind of firm that up. Act 200, that's that viewing corridor, and that was in your packet as well. That really is some flexibility in allowing a larger viewing corridor for the small lake lots. Typically every 100 feet of frontage, you're allowed 35 feet of viewing corridor. Well, some folks have those small 50 feet carrying lots. And so this act is really allowing that. They have 35% or 17.5 feet of allowable viewing for them to So this is sort of a housekeeping item tied to Act 200. Act 105, that's just a definition cleanup with, there's a new definition for impervious surfaces. Floodplain app update, I believe Jason added that, and I think that has something to do with the FEMA maps or LiDAR, using those for the confirming the ordinary high water mark. Rural address ordinance clarification, we just learned this over the last month or so. Our neighbors on Vincent Lake had started a petition to retain their historical name, and we noticed some ambiguity in this ordinance. It says that you have to collect 100% of the resident's signature. Is it residents or property owners? There's a little confusion there, so we want to look at that. Again, Eric talked about storm erosion control. Tourist rooming house, revocation change or complete rewrite. We can talk about that more, particularly it's related to item 8D on your agenda. And then renewable energy ordinance, particularly for solar farms. This is something that we can do. We're thinking about, we have looked at other counties requiring a conditional use for every large scale solar photovoltaic operations. Something that we thought we would propose from early season, November to January.
So could get this.
In addition to that, if I may, Bob, one new development too is I'm visiting with staff at DADCAP, Department of Ag, Trade and Consumer Protection, related to our water quality and animal waste ordinance. Might need to clear up some things within that ordinance to make it consistent with new standards and statutes and things like that. So I'll know more after my conversation with them next week, and we may have to tweak some items on that ordinance, but I'll know more a little bit later. But just wanted to mention that one as well.
Yeah, this is your preview for
Yeah,
the winter months.
so that should be added.
Yeah, it was on there and then I wasn't sure and I ended up talking with DADCAP and I'll be having a discussion with them. So we'll end up adding that. So next, I'd like to give you an update on our watershed-wide well water test efforts for 2022. And Bob's got a map that I'd like to have put up on the screen. Just to give you an idea of where our project areas were. So if you remember, our two project areas were the Apple River Flowage Watershed and the Upper Trade River Watershed. And when it's a little larger in size, maybe a little too big, Bob. Oh, that's good, right there. Apple River Flowage runs from the south end of Balsam Lake all the way down to basically the north part of Amory. So the Upper Trade Watershed, we have Frederick here, and Butternut Lakes here, Loch Freedom Lakes up in this neighborhood. So that's the area that we're talking. Upper Trade River Watershed is about 29,000 acres, and Apple River Flowage is about 27,000 acres. And if you remember, our methodology with this is we wanted to seek out volunteers to submit well water tests for 100 samples in each watershed. And we did that through mailings. In the Apple River Watershed, we mailed to 620 landowners. And in the Upper Trade River Watershed, we mailed to 533 landowners. In the Upper Trade River Watershed, we pre-registered 66 samples, so we didn't quite meet our goal there. Wasn't as much interest in that watershed as some of the others we've seen for whatever reason. But in the Apple River Flowage, we pre-registered 99 samples, so we did okay there. We had a total of 156 samples turned in. 95 in the Apple River flowage and 61 in the upper trade. So 9 samples, sample bottles or test kits got mailed to volunteers that had agreed to do a test, but they, for whatever reason, did not bring their sample into our office. So we had 9 samples not returned. But we got those samples to the lab on August 10th. So they're being analyzed right now, and we've actually heard some response from those because we had one that was somewhat urgent to get in contact with the landowner because they did have a positive E. coli hit. So we wanted to reach out to them and tell them their water was unsafe for consumption. So with those samples at the lab, we're now focusing in on our cover crop incentive. So if you remember, some of our outreach with this is to promote practices that can improve groundwater quality, and cover crops will do that, can do that. So we've mailed out a total of 95 letters in the 2 watersheds to large landowners or egg producers that may be interested in taking advantage of some of the incentives that we have for cover crops grown in that area. And we're getting some response. So meeting with a few producers here in the next week, get maps, and we've had some commitments. So we're able to gain a little bit of interest in that practice, and hopefully that carries on and they continue that practice. So I'm pleased with the response that we had, and I'm looking forward to the outreach opportunity and to see how much interest we have in a Zoom meeting or further outreach with these participants involving groundwater health and the system and all the things we covered in that outreach opportunity. So are there any questions regarding that program?
So will we have the results back by next month? Or-
Yeah, we say 5 to 6 weeks. So yeah, it's been about a month. So I would think, yeah, we should get results by next month.
Then on the upper trade picture there, the
Yeah.
green, is that just forest land in Sterling, or is that Burnett County?
That's Burnett County.
Okay.
Yeah, and we didn't get up into there. We cut the line at the county line. But that's just to give you an idea that the watershed does dip into the Burnett County slightly.
Okay. No, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, number 8. We did 8. Sterling, we'll be in the.
Sure.
How about that?
Bob, can we get copies of those 2 maps that were shown? And the only reason I ask that is when I go to the town, like the town of Eureka would be interested in that information when I give an update to them at their meeting.
Yeah, I almost printed out handouts. I'm sorry, I
Oh, that's
didn't. I
okay.
decided to go this route instead, but
Yeah,
yeah, I'll
that's
get you copies. Would all of you like copies? Is email okay or?
That's emails.
Yeah, that's good.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
thank you.
Yep, can do.
On Sterling. Depending on your perspective, this could be good news. I will be attending their next town board meeting, which is next Monday. They are receptive to joining the county zoning authority. So I'll just give you a quick update on process. We've developed a proposed zoning map, predominantly RA5, except for Cushing. They're going to consider that official map And they have also a resolution drafted adopting that official zoning district map as well as an ordinance. And so I will attend the Monday meeting, work with them on the official map. If they receptive, we'll get the county clerk a resolution. Thereafter, we'll file a petition with the county clerk to amend our county zoning district map. And then obviously there'll be a public hearing with an ordinance before you all. That's 3 weeks from the petition. And then, believe it or not, it goes to the county board. All they really need to do is acknowledge it. There's no real need to approve it. And we're looking at the effective date of January 1st, 2023. That's when that was mentioned to me when the town clerk would like to fall under. Like a marriage, 10-year commitment. Getting out of a marriage is tough too, you know, so. For Sterling,
So they had a public hearing, town of Sterling, you know.
I will ask.
Seems like a hornet's nest. I mean, not getting in, but if they do it without a public hearing in Sterling, it seems like,
They really stirred them.
yeah, because
Sterling's pretty good size. Land like.
When?
well, they've never been in zoning, so
Yeah.
it's
So,
going to be a huge step for them.
It's always, when in doubt, have a public hearing. Best practice.
What will that do for staffing? For you? Big change or not?
I don't know. A lot of non-conforming structures out there. And compliance issues, we'll see. Sterling is unique.
I would say more than quite a few.
Yeah.
Oops. Too late to change their mind.
That's why.
That's why I would hope they would have a public hearing. You know, if nobody shows up, then that's fine, but at least
Yeah.
know how the citizens feel about it. But they jump in.
I haven't seen their agenda yet. You're right. Probably required.
Yeah, I would think so.
I heard the citizens are planning.
I was just thinking that, Doug.
One never knows.
It's quite a ways.
Brad's setting things up.
My
for
phone
public
isn't
hearing.
ringing saying get back into county zoning, so.
Brad's setting himself up for a public hearing.
All right, so that should, yeah, so that's gonna take till the first of the year. Before we have, right, yeah. And we'll get the worst of the public hearing that. That's the worst part. They'll miss theirs and come to ours. Yeah. The budget, so this is our new timelines. Yeah, they'll skip.
I've got a couple of mine.
Oh, yeah.
You're right.
Oh.
That's strange. Well,
That is weird.
don't know why that happened.
Can I get to-
Well, the one you have in front of you is as colorful as one we're seeing, and I can't explain why that's going on, but so I'm Don Wortham, General Government Director for about 33 days. I'm here to give you a high-level overview of where we are with the budget process. So Bob, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to take a step back. Let me know if I'm in anybody's way. This is really beautiful. So if you look toward the bottom of your packet, it might be a little easier on your eyes. The green dots, the red dots are mini meetings, and the green dots are full board meetings. So we are right at the beginning of the time where you're getting information about the 2023 budget. And in about 5 minutes, after being somewhat general, I'll bring it back to ES. We're going to talk about the budget process in general for folks who may not be fully familiar with it. The goal, and by statute, it's, I guess, more than a goal, but we have to have a budget approved for fiscal 23 on the 8th of November. So that's really what we're working toward. Next month, you'll get more detail on, particularly on projects related to Environmental Services Committee. Important date, 10/18. That's when the full board gets together. We've got all of the budget pieces, all these planes have been flying around air traffic control, getting down onto the tarmac safely. On the 18th, you'll get a chance to review the full budget. So that's kind of the lay of the land. Any questions about where we are in the process? I think we're doing pretty well time-wise. We're actually on schedule. I'm not sure we've been there in the last couple of years.
I just have one question.
Yes.
So on the 8th of November, that's election day. Are they planning? County board?
Yeah, we know it's trouble, but we are looking up, is it legal to do it?
No.
Does every board shall hold an annual meeting on Tuesday after the second Monday of November? Sorry.
That's-
So we are required to have it on that day. According to that, from initial blush.
I know. That work?
You need to be very nice.
I mean, but it's also gonna take up some of us as
Work
board
board
members
members.
too.
Let me put it out on the corporate council listserv.
Yeah. We'd originally hoped, oh, let's just move it to Wednesday or Thursday, but we just saw that, so we'll have to investigate.
I just want to throw that out
Does
there.
it say by that date? We can do it earlier? Does it say that?
Shall
date
have it
specific?
on.
I thought it said by that date, so that we could do it before.
Every board shall hold an annual meeting on the Tuesday after the
Oh, on
second
the
Monday of November each.
We'll check with the other
Yeah.
WCA, see if they're.
Yeah, because it's gonna be a lot bigger issue than just Tracy and Polk County and maybe others in Polk County. It's gonna be statewide. I mean,
Statewide, yeah.
there's gonna be 72 meetings the night of the election.
Wait.
It's the wrong
Wait.
page.
It is the 15th because it's the first Tuesday after the second Monday, and the second Monday is the 14th because Tuesday is the first.
Ah, we
So
got an
it's the
extra week.
15th.
Excellent. Way to go, Tracy.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking.
Why can't they just say
Budget
the third Tuesday, second,
Because
first Tuesday after
normally-
the second?
Normally, they don't want that to be the case because of Thanksgiving.
Right,
Sure.
so we can like scratch that, to what?
Please scratch that out. We'll make all changes.
So it's the 15th. It will be the week before Thanksgiving.
So it'll still be the third Tuesday night.
Right, for us, yeah.
I mean, for us.
Thank you. Just a brief overview of budgeting principles, particularly for those who are new to the process. Levy dollars are the last dollars we want to go after. We want our spending in the budget to reflect the board priorities. We called it about two and a half years ago. We established 4 key priorities, and then we have operational priorities beyond that. Expenses. Departments look across their current year operating, their previous year operating, ask themselves whether they need to carry forward all of that work and the dollars that go with it. They also identify new work that needs to be done, and they develop what are called additional funding requests, AFRs, and they send those to general government to the county administrator. So the departments have done that. They've prioritized them. We've got 27 budgets, all of these AFRs coming in. We're trying to get them sorted out and prioritized, not just by the department, but for the whole county. That's the sort of work we're doing now. Departments also develop their 5-year capital. The general government next week will show an overview of the 5-year capital plan across the entire county. Revenue, we want to maximize external revenue to the degree we can out of the extramural grants, things like that. But we want to make sure on the fee side that our fees do not exceed the cost of providing the service. So those are the basic principles that we operate and have been operating under previous years. I won't spend too much time on this. This is just how the work gets broken down according to departments, general government staff, and the administrator. Departments generate the ideas for the most part. General government organizes all the information, and the administrator, working with the departments, identifies opportunities for the budget forward. Looks at those additional funding requests. So what's going on this year in terms of expenses? What do we see? So on the employee operating side, there's 3 really important moving parts. There's a cost of living adjustment. Now, we've surveyed about 20 counties throughout the state, and the range here is quite considerable in terms of cost of living. You've got counties as low as 2% up to 7% in Jackson. Our nearby counties are in the 3 to 4% range for the cost of living adjustment. We're modeling a couple of different ideas here, and they're within the 3 to 4% range. Last year, we offered a 2.9% COLA increase to employees. For this next fiscal year, we're looking at somewhere in the 3 to 4% range. As part of the staffing model, there's also a merit component. If you recall, last year, you asked administration to look at, move toward a merit plan that was based on performance. We've been giving out a merit increase of 2%. What your idea will have us do is potentially differentially applying that 2%. So not everybody would get it. Some would get more, some might get less. But the 2% itself doesn't change for fiscal 23. In fact, what we will be doing in fiscal 23 is getting all the machinery in place so that we can do a differential merit in 24. We've got a lot of work to do in terms of building a performance evaluation system on the technical side. We've got managers that need to be trained on how to actually conduct performance evaluations and differentiate in terms of performance, employee performance. So there's a lot of work to be done. But the basic financial side is we're going to be looking at that 2% merit.
Like today, everybody automatically gets a 2% merit increase.
I can't speak for the past. My understanding is that some managers will withhold that 2%, but I also understand that has been extremely rare. Now, I have very little history with the organization, and I would defer to others that have more history.
Historically, it was considered a given, unless there was certain circumstances with an individual or area where they might do it different. Last year, it was a resolution passed to look at a bonus system or some way how to recognize top performers.
Yeah.
That's what we've been doing, but as we looked at it, we said, to make this thing fair and to do it appropriately, we got to start first with the evaluation process, which currently doesn't allow us to really differentiate behaviors and to coach up and those types of things. So we're going to get that in place so that going forward, we'll be able to designate who are the top performers who might deserve a little more, or who are the ones who maybe deserve a little less. And so that's the long process that we're going through now. So it's not only just redoing a performance appraisal, but it's also how do we coach our managers to deliver that message, to record, to coach throughout the year.
Sure, because you've got, like last year, everybody automatically got 4.9%.
No. So there was a segment, it's only for people who are below a certain point on a wage grid. So we actually had some managers withhold the COLA.
Okay,
And so some people got nothing.
okay.
Some people got the 2.9 and some people got the 4.9, but it was not a universal. The way it was set up previously, once you hit a certain point, you were never eligible for that merit, even if you were the best performer.
Sure, because you
Never
reached the
eligible.
top of
So
your grade.
the whole system, we're looking at the
Yeah.
whole system to make it more equitable, but also, trying to find some incentives for increased performance. Because I'm thinking about like my department, child support, right? We have performance measures. If we get somebody into court within so many days and get a court order and start doing that, our performance measures, in other words, the money that we get from the state and the feds goes up. So why not, since it's easy, create a system where if you meet a certain benchmark, and it doesn't have to be like, at a certain spot, but let's say you increase your performance by a certain percentage. In a situation like that, what can we do for those top performers? And then if you knew, well, if I bust my butt here and I can get those numbers up, I'm gonna get that higher level of an increase. I think you might, not that money is everything, but you'll see maybe people going above and beyond, where when it's just everybody gets the same.
There's no
Laws that do the
incentive.
bare minimum, and not necessarily, but there is no incentive. So that's what we're looking at.
Thank you for that. So we talked about COLA, we talked about merit, another moving part in all this is healthcare, employee benefits in general. But the largest fraction of that is healthcare related expense. Our actuaries are predicting, and this is kind of an amazing statistic. They're predicting that our payouts for healthcare itself will remain flat next budget year. What we've noticed over the last few years, possibly because of the work we've done, helping employees understand trade-offs with respect to health, healthier behaviors, we've actually underspent the budget for healthcare. Our goal has been and remains to try to keep employee premiums flat or to at least minimize increases. And relative to the rest of the employer market, that's pretty great to be able to say. We have this health fund of about $7 million, a bit more, that allows our county some flexibility with respect to departmental and employee expense. If you were part of the audit call back at the last board meeting, you heard our auditor, Jonathan Sherwood, address that health fund and how we need to gradually spend it down. So we've been talking about employee expense. Let's talk about non-employee expense. There's really two categories here. There's non-employee operating, sorry for the technical stuff here, but non-employee operating and capital. We started off all departments with a baseline budget this year with a 1.5% increase, just to see how that was going to fit. We're also modeling a flat scenario with a 0% increase, and we're modeling a scenario where we decrease non-employee operating expense. Why would we do that? Strange economy. There's lots of moving parts. My crystal ball is cloudy. We want to make sure that we at least understand the implications of staying with the budget where we've increased operating, non-employee operating expense by 1.5%. So we're going to look at a flat scenario, also a slight decrease. Now, we've got to have all that done by the next set of budget meetings. Just for your information, if you're not aware, so what non-employee operating expenses? It's everything from equipment repairs to mileage, capital. The capital requests vary by department. We get folks asking for software, we get folks asking for vehicles. What capital is, it's individual items over 5,000 K, and those are depreciable for the company. So the three categories were employee expense, non-employee operating expense, and capital expense, just in terms of general. Bob, can you give us the next slide? Okay, when you're doing a budget, you want to ask yourself, on the revenue side, what can I impact and what can I not impact? It is very challenging for the county to impact our levy. It's pretty much set by the state by formula. We have very little control as a county over what we pull in sales tax. Those are great funding sources, but they're not flexible for us. Grants, extramural funding is flexible in the sense that we can apply for more grants. We're not in control of whether we get those grants, but we can control what we apply for. with the money that we've got in the bank, the general funds and the health funds, we have some flexibility now. Some portion of those funds are restricted. But as of the end of 21, we had about $28 million unassigned in the general fund. There's some flexibility around that. And as I mentioned before, we've got that health fund of a little over 7 million. Another flexible tool, and I'm not suggesting necessarily that we use this, but we have excess bonding capacity right now. So that's borrowing money. We try to keep our debt payment to about a little less than $2.5 million a year. We could borrow an additional, with current rates, about 1.6 and not exceed that cap. So we have some flexibility there. It's a tool.
I'd go sit on it, but you just throw me off. Can you back up a
Sure.
slide, Bob? So the 28 million you're talking about, now you said some of that is dedicated fund.
Well, we can't, there's certain things that we have to use the health fund for health related expense, that's an example. So it's segregated from that 28 million.
Right, but it really isn't 28 million of unassigned funds, because it's 28 million to me is a.
21. So there's a
21 million.
Yeah. So there's accounting.
Okay, but even the 21 million, there's a certain portion of that that's dedicated funds or not.
Yes, so we segment.
So I mean,
those out.
we can't just touch them for anything with.
That's correct. That's correct. And we, as an example, you passed an ordinance last year that parks $600,000 of money for Clam Falls dam repairs. That's part of that. It's called unrestricted, but it doesn't mean it's not designated.
Okay,
So the 50% is of the unrestricted, so that's down to, we have a 50%.
Yeah, about.
Reserve.
Check, but
So that's out of, that isn't out of the 28.
correct.
It's down to
Absolutely
the
correct.
21, it's down to the 20, you take everything out. So people don't think we have 28 million to spend is what I'm looking at.
right, and that's what I was
No,
but
thinking.
we have-
There isn't 28 million to spend, because we've got the 50% that we have to keep.
Yeah,
And then we have dedicated money over that. That's still in there. So that's, yeah, I mean, we're getting at the same thing, Kim. It isn't
Yeah.
like there's $21 million sitting
Right,
there
checks off of.
to spend.
There's $28 million that can be used for county operations. That's the way it's framed as in the auditor report. Okay, on the revenue side? Yes, on the revenue side, what are we looking at? Well, from the levy, we're currently estimating about 24.3 million coming in from the levy. We won't know this for sure until after September 15th when we get the magic form that the state gives us. But we're, right now in our budget models, we're using that as a plug number. In previous years, we haven't used all the levy. So we'll have to examine that. We need flexibility. Sales tax. We have, for the last years, under budgeted sales tax. So 2021, we budgeted 3.6, it came in at 4.6. So we had $1 million in excess on that. 2022, that's this current year, we budgeted for about 4 million. When we look at what's coming in, we talked to our consultants on this. They're saying we're going to finish up at 4.6. So we get an additional about $600,000 in revenue in 2023, we believe. So what are we doing about fiscal 23? Right now, the estimates are coming in, and it's a crystal ball because we haven't collected a single sales tax dollar for 23 yet, but folks are talking about 4.9 to $5 million. So what will we budget for? When I've asked our consultants to give me a 95% confident level number, it's in this 4.2 to 4.6 range. 99% confident at 4.25. So we'll be budgeting sales tax somewhere in this range. External funding, really, I just want to make the point that we've had a lot of external funding flowing in from the last couple of years because of COVID. We're not seeing anything like that volume for 23. So for the golden years of money flowing in from other sources, particularly the federal government, we don't see that happening. Not the near future. Okay, to take it back a little closer to ES, that's all been general. I already talked about most of the things in the slide. The departments, Bob, his team have put together additional funding requests for the administrator to consider. We've organized those. You'll have the opportunity to approve all those in the final budget. But let's go look at what those are. And Bob and your team, feel free to chime in here. These are just, this is pretty high level, 30,000 feet. So Land and Water is asking for some personnel related funding of about $2,000. There's an additional operating request of about 14K, and that's for, is it for lakes that are not?
Right, that's the Environmental Services Committee asked for us to do a baseline study of undeveloped.
And information, we've got additional personnel funded, personnel related funding of about $4,500. Capital request for software related to permitting and mapping of about $20,000. Forestry is asking for $8,300, about $8,000. And Deeds has got an FF&E request of about $30,000 additional funding. So those are the requests we've got that the administrators are doing for inclusion in the 2023 budget. Any questions about that?
The registered deeds, isn't that in our? I thought that was in our improvements already over there.
So we're looking at,
It's not in our improvements on the 8.2 million. And
These are furniture and fixtures.
we didn't have any furniture and fixtures in that over there. All right. Okay, that's, I just thought we had something there.
So these are just the ones from the departments.
that touch environmental services. So if we were at public safety, public works, it'd be a different list. Now, in a month, we'll have the list for everybody to look at across all departments. Right now, we're working with each of the committees on just those departments that they touch. Any questions about what?
So give or take ballpark figure, environmental services looking for another 78,000 next year. In the budget over this year.
That isn't personnel related. Sorry, that isn't COLA or merit related. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So do our grants fluctuate much? And I mean, then they're locked into what they can be spent for when we're applying for that grant. So when we talk about grant money versus levy money, we're going to bring in about another 500,000 in levy money this year. So in the scheme of things, that's what we've got to play with over last year's budget. Is 500,000 more? No, not because the grants are going to be dedicated money to, if it's health and human services, environmental, it's going to be towards a project. So I guess, I mean, it looked like we were going to be about 24.3 million on the levy compared to 23.8 or something like that. So that tells me levy wise, we've got $500,000 more than we had last year.
Yeah, that's net new construction. Whatever the formula is that the state counts of our levy limit, we cannot just add.
Right.
So you make an important point. That's not a big pot to allocate
To all the places.
Well, it's once I throw in the 3 to 4%, cost of living increase, my pot went negative. I'm gonna think.
Well, you're 6% when you figure you're married. I mean, at the end of the day, you figure 6%.
Right, but even if I figure 4% across the board for cost of living and merit as an average.
Right. And you think about, you've heard Mo talk about, well, we're trying to get a new dump truck or whatever, and how the inflation has gone up. Well, all department expenses have gone up.
The overruns are over 3 million.
Right. So that's why we looked at, let's add 1.5% to your expenses to give them a little leeway. That was at least one of our estimates. But we look at it, and we know that our revenues from the feds will not be as much. And so this is unlike previous years where we just said, hey, we think we can cover it with this grant, these monies coming in. This year, all of a sudden, it's a snapback of, whoa, back to reality. We're not gonna have that money coming in. So there are gonna be some hard decisions going forward.
Yeah, and in every department, because I mean, even just, I'll pick on Mo because he left, but I mean, the dump trucks last year being, considerably overpriced from what they were budgeted. 1.5% isn't gonna cover the extra cost of a couple dump trucks, squad cars, whatever it happens to be, no matter what division it's in.
It's a squeeze. No question.
The good news, that's the bad news. The good news is, as Don had pointed out, I thought rather well, is we do have revenue options, Yes, we do have a general fund that we built up, not that we, like my checking account, I keep telling myself, don't go into that savings account, but it's tempting when you look at it. But we do have it there for those things that are critically important, that we can fill some gaps.
That's what I got for you today. Are there any questions?
On the budgeting principles, get back to page 2.
Yes.
So we have fees not to exceed the cost. We have fees that actually cover the cost. Can we have that line in there?
Yes, and that's a good question. And we discussed this a little bit back before our general government committee meeting 2 months ago. And I think I mentioned to you that I felt departments had done a good job of analyzing their fees relative to where they've been in the past. So we haven't had a thorough review of fees and the costs associated with those countywide. So we haven't been uniform in that. I think that's an area we can improve. No one's looking to increase fees for the sake of increasing fees, but I'm not sure across all county departments we've been uniform in how we've looked at.
Yeah, they cover the cost. I mean, we try to say not to exceed a cost, providing they do that. We still have to cover it sometimes. If everybody gets a raise, the fee has to go up that. To enforce that and stuff. I mean, Health and Human Services always seems to be behind. They're one of the big ones. You see that placement of kids, what it costs and stuff. Well, that's what the fee should be.
Like, in theory, you could match it with whatever the cost of employment is.
Just about.
But
Yeah.
you're right. But
But I mean, to make sense of it, because if it costs a person, you're giving them $40 an hour to go out there, now you gotta pay them 60. Well, it went up $20 and the fee is still $50. We're losing money.
we're asking.
So it has to go
staff be
both
more
ways,
efficient.
not just this way.
We will need to do what we're discussing is we'll have to start our budget process earlier than we did this year, for sure next year.
At least get the
And get some
Get it in
some
there so
early
that we know
estimates of where, it's sort of almost a chargeback sort of situation. There's a lot of work to be done, and to do it, we would need to start earlier, but I think it's absolutely worth looking at. Anything else?
I highlighted all.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. D, discussion procedures when pursuing compliance. This is related, zoning, is it not?
Yeah,
For us right now?
right, Kim, you asked to have this on the agenda. We'll let you know that we are looking at and refining our compliance procedure process, so. Right now, we'll collect the complaints, and believe it or not, about 40% of the time it's related to our first rooming houses, particularly as of late. We document them, document the complaint, document who is the complainant, the date and time. We do that in Ascent. Then we'll do a site visit to confirm the violation. And we send a letter, and we've been improving our efforts to call those violators to communicate the violation. So I think we're doing a better job documenting the violation and recording those situations. So there's that. One of the things we talked about earlier, I referenced it about our ordinance amendment season. I believe I put it in your packet, is Article 18. This is revocation, so it's not in there.
No.
I got my chicken scratch on there.
I just printed off in mine.
I got my chicken scratch on there. This ordinance was refined back in 2019. However, there's an error. That first sentence C actually is referenced from pre-2019. So whenever there's a violation of the conditions of a permit, the permit's full. You go below C, then it talks about the process, about a warning. If there's a second warning within 6 months, you can revoke the permit. And then, of course, with the revoked permit, there's a 3-month wait or stay before you can apply for a conditional use permit. So I just want to point this out. This is conflicting ordinance, and C is antiquated revocation piece, whereas 1 is what we adhere to and try to. So that'll be a little bit of housekeeping as well.
But now, all right. So here's what happened. I need some explanation on this one. How was it antiquated and how did Jason write these out? How does he write a violation? How does zoning go about doing violations? With the neighbors helped and all this, and then turn around and all of a sudden, there's no violation.
So here's, I think I know the case that you're talking about.
There's more than one, there's 6.
Understood. I think I understand the situation.
Okay,
We have the old ordinance.
we haven't, but we, at the end of our new ordinance says that's null and void. Is it not?
Right. There's 2 different things.
Okay.
Let me finish before you ask questions as I'm going, because it's a process to talk about the legal analysis. You have the old ordinance. If somebody received their permit under the old ordinance, that old ordinance applies to their revocation and any subsequent reapplication. So if they had the permit under the previous ordinance, that ordinance stays applicable to that applicant until they apply for their new one under the new ordinance. And then the new ordinance applies. So we had this discussion, Bob, Jason, the administrator, about the legal analysis. And I think what happened was there was a misunderstanding, and Jason thought that not needing to wait that additional time before reapplying, that just applied to everybody, even people who had permits under the new ordinance. But from a straight legal analysis perspective, they don't have to wait to reapply as long as it was revoked and their original permit was under the old ordinance. If it's under the new ordinance and we follow the letter of the law, they would then have to wait that amount.
So what does the old ordinance say if you violate any of the conditions?
Well, it's deemed revoked, and then.
So that's what we're under then, if that permit was under the old one.
Right, and that is what happened.
So then he wrote that.
And then he told them they can reapply, but then they'd be reapplying under the new ordinance.
Well, of course they have to update, yeah.
Right.
But they violated.
And it was
And there
revoked.
was no, nothing.
Yes, it was. It was revoked.
It was revoked.
It was revoked.
All 6. I thought they
But
were all
the 3,
given back
the 3-month stay.
So they can reapply.
in 3 months.
So right away, because it was revoked under the old ordinance, there's no waiting period. under
So
the
why do we
old
write a new one if we have to go back to the old?
Because it's called an ex post facto law, right? We cannot change the law now and say, all of you, which is why, like, if Bob built a house and at the time there was no zoning, and now he could never build that house, we're not telling Bob, go tear down your house. It's the same concept. We have to apply the law as it existed at the time the permit was issued for those permits until they reapply under the new, and then they're under the new ordinance.
But how about if they violate? As soon as you violate, doesn't all that stop?
Then it's revoked under the old ordinance,
And now they have to start over.
and now they have to reapply. And now they're under the new ordinance as soon as they reapply.
So because they were permitted before 2019.
Right. If they were permitted.
If they were permitted, yep. Assuming they were permitted before 2019. Jason revoked my permit, but I'd gotten a permit for a tourist streaming house in 2015. I could then come back in and apply
Under the
tomorrow.
new ordinance.
under the new ordinance, which we have today.
And that has the limits and then the waiting period if they're revoked under that
Yeah.
new ordinance.
So, and I'm not saying this happened, I'm just asking the question. What if I didn't have a permit for a tourist rooming house? And I got turned in and could I then apply tomorrow, today? Because I may have been running it for the last 10 years without a permit.
Without a permit, so they were not permitted at
So then if
all.
I wasn't permitted at all, how long do I have to wait to now? If they say, oh, you've never had a permit,
Right, so there's no permit to revoke. They
but
have-
I'm assuming I'm gonna have a cease and desist order.
There would be a cease and desist, there would be either a summons and complaint, it's every day. They're operating without a valid permit is a separate violation. I mean, they theoretically could have huge amounts of fines, and then when they come in, if they applied for just the permitted use, yeah, they would be okay, but if they applied for a CUP because they wanted to, continue operating as they had been on, every day or what have you, that would be taken into account by the committee when deciding whether or not to issue the CUP. But you're right, they would be able to apply for the permitted use, which is the limited.
But they would be told they couldn't act as a
So
tourist.
So they don't get
house.
fined.
would they not have to wait the 3 months that I have to wait?
Because nothing was revoked. Nothing was revoked under that new ordinance. There's no waiting period for your first one just because you're a bad guy and have been doing things illegally up to this point.
Penalty is actually just a fee.
I don't have one more question.
Yes.
I just talked about just because some more issues. But revoked, you say that they're going on with the new system, then they can only have it 7 days a month.
Unless they get a CUP.
Unless they get a CUP.
Which is kind of the next talking agenda item is, those are in the queue now, those are coming. Folks wanting to be exempt from those 7 days a week between.
That's
Several
the
more.
only one I think I did.
Yeah, there's something coming up.
Because most of them, their client checks out at 11, the cleaner comes in at noon, and it's done by 3, the new people check in at 3, and it just continues like that.
It's not.
It's nonstop.
We have 5 applicants and 2, we told them at the next meeting. And that's something to think about. They're gonna be time consuming and potentially contentious. Depending on how you all react. Deny them or add other conditions, it's gonna be a conversation. If we add some flexibility, then you're gonna see a lot more. So I'm just sharing that with you. It's, for us to plan this and convey to the applicants. we need to talk about how many a month or how many a meeting you'd like to see. These again are tourist rooming houses. we'd like to see.
So the first one, we'll find out how long it does take us. Doing stuff and then see. Even before, we would only do, I think we would do up to 4, and that took us all day because we did site visits, everything back then. I mean, it was the morning site visits to 4 and then try to do them in the afternoon. So now to work on this a little, what does zoning do for compliance? What do we tell people when they get caught? What do we tell the zoning people that go out there, the zoning administrators? Jason, all of them, Logan, all of them, when they go out and this happens, how do we handle it now? That, because these last ones all got to come right
So
back
if they're
in.
grandfather, they're pre-2019. Are they just
We need
allowed to
something-
come in and reapply?
Apply,
And if they're post-2019, do they have to wait
then they have to
3
wait.
months?
So we have to have that date or
So
something.
there's some there's some
There's
clarity
a lot of
there.
neighbors not have, that they got to just, gee, you got caught cheating, oh, all right, you lied to the county, you lied to everybody. Go paperwork out again and start over.
So back to Brad's point, you said that there was fees, that they would have fees. What are the fees that they have to pay?
In a case where,
Like if they didn't have any,
right, so there is, it's an additional, is it 500 or 750 on top of the original fee? After the fact fee? It's a big amount. I think it nearly or more than doubles what the original application fee would be to apply for the permit. As a penalty for operating without, we see this quite a bit more with like salvage yards. Salvage yards, people operating salvage yards without an appropriate permit. Mines without a permit, but certainly the same theory would apply for rooming house.
But still, I mean, it sounds like a lot, but when you're getting, I mean,
What they make.
one of the tiniest lakes in the county was charging $450 on a non-permitted house a night. So it's 2 nights.
Right, but however, if they are operating in violation of the ordinance, every day is considered a separate violation. And so the forfeiture amount could be just every single day. Like, as long as we can prove that they were operating.
The judge has never done. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean,
Has he ever
But I
had
mean, I
more
can-
than once?
But if I get caught today and I'm pre-19. So we know that I have, Brad Olson has the illegal tourist rooming house September 7th, but on September 7th, depending on what time of the day, I'm still walking in and getting my permit. So it's very easy for me to be, or I'm walking in tomorrow morning and getting my permit from zoning. So that's all it's gonna be is the $750, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's, you know.
if we had.
But is there no more inspections? Does the health have to, when you come in to apply, doesn't it, they have to not be able to?
It's all
until
in the
it's all checked?
application, right? So property line.
So it might take a week
It's all,
before
the
you.
conditions are already on the.
The health department has to come and stuff too.
Right.
The applicant should know those conditions.
Should,
Wow.
I mean, they sit in front of them, filled it out, and then blatantly put it on the internet.
Well, yeah,
lied
they
to
claim,
them. I
they
mean,
claim ignorance.
they signed their name and said, okay, I think this is all the legal facts. It's like any other document. I think we have to slap them a
I
little harder.
think for the Brad Wilson Clam Falls tourist rooming house situation, you almost have to write it in that you have.
So what we could do. I'm just. Spitballing here. What we could theoretically do is amend the ordinance to say. An applicant who has had a verified. Violation and verified by. Either a citation that they were found guilty of or something else specific to operating without a valid permit within the last 24 months. Yeah, something where you would have to be so many months outside of that verified violation before they can apply. In other words, they have to be a good actor for whatever.
But if they have to be a good actor, they're not renting it out. I mean, realistically, if
Right.
they had to wait the same 3 months that somebody was post 2019 had to wait,
Yeah.
then they would have to.
So they would have to
Wait.
be violation free and they would have to prove it. In other words, they would have to show. I think there is a way we could write it. And again, it would only apply to people who had a violation after the date we enacted that ordinance.
Right.
But that's what's happening now.
We could.
These are all these older ones that are getting away with it,
But they shouldn't.
and they should,
No. And,
and we're letting them get away with it.
well, that's a
That's the
mistake.
point. I mean, we did all this rewrite and all this work. And boom, they just threw it right in our face and said, you know what?
No. If we have.
We'll do 11 people, we'll do 12.
It's like a contract, and this is what I tried to explain, and I don't normally get involved until I make sure that the rules are being applied appropriately. We have a contract for those before 2019, we have a contract for those afterwards. You have to, both sides have to live up to that contract. What happened was, we made a mistake here in the 2008 rules. And when we went back to fix it, it got applied to everybody. 4 or 5 different people. That was a mistake. They should have had to have waited 3 months because they came in after 2019. What we have to do is implement the contract. And now, if you want to change the rules, we'll implement that contract as well. But until those rules get changed, we can't have
That's the
an
start.
administrator or a zoning administrator just going, I think I'll do this one this time. And that's how it appears to the public. If we're not consistent and applying the law as it is, then you get the public saying, wait a minute. What are these guys doing? Are they being fair? Are they being honest? They challenge. And that's where we have to do a better job of implementing the contract. But 2, if you don't like it, then that's your opportunity to say, how can we change the ordinance? And that's what we can.
Well, I mean, if you just want to look at that.
So it's still, I'm still, okay. So where is zoning at? So they have to decide where it's at when this comes in, and then we get to play this game.
Right, the staff,
They just get to
the
come
staff's a
walk
little
up and.
confused, so we need to determine if they're grandfathered, so pre-2019.
They
Then
can come in the
the
next week. and start
2019
over.
rules don't apply to them.
Yeah.
Everyone that's past 2019 gets the warning. The warning in 6 months.
The other ones have to come back in, fill it out, but they have to go through health and everybody again. If they
Well,
violate.
those are already conditions on the application that they have.
Okay, on the old one.
The new one.
And the new one. No, but I mean, even if the old one, if they break any of those. Or more than one.
If they break an old one, they don't have a permit. They cannot operate a tourist rooming house until they reapply for the 2022.
Then they have the limitations and the obligations
Right.
under.
Then they have all the limitations and stuff. So these old ones that have been advertising and overdoing it and all this. Are, they finally got caught, got violation, finally got caught. Now they have to upgrade.
And fall under the new rules, but unlike the post-2019 violators who had their permits pulled, they don't have the 3 months.
Until they fill out the next note.
So if you think about it,
So they-
eventually
they-
when grandfathered,
So they lose that one, they're gonna come in, boom, now they're under the new one. Now you get 7 days, boom, boom, boom.
Right.
So now they'll, and
so you can think about it that
so
way.
they're
Ken.
breaking it again. What if they're still renting? In that interim.
Right, then they get the revocation, they get the warning.
Mhm.
And
Second
then if
warning.
they continue, they get the revocation and then they have the 3 months.
Well, that might be some of the problem right now with the neighbors, because they said, "We never stop. You know,
So is there ever a fine associated with?
Yes, there's a forfeiture, they can issue citations, just like a speeding ticket.
I was in contact with Bob and he sent me all the new ordinances because I couldn't find it. It's easy, but I can't do it. I told Bob that.
The code, yeah.
But I go back to this where now it's 7 days a month, but they can come in for conditional use, it says on there. Well, where is that? I mean, can somebody help me out? Where does that fit in? What did they come up with? If we would let them be every week all summer.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
they might say, I've got a buffer, I have no neighbors within, and so the normal noise issue, the normal nuisance kind of stuff isn't applicable. Maybe they're not even on a lake, maybe it's more of a retreat.
I can
you know.
see that. I
Yeah.
understand that totally. I don't understand a 100-foot lot that comes in and says, well, you'll do this. You know,
And that would be for you on a case by case
I
basis.
guess it would be, but I'm just saying, I can't come up with any reason.
It's a good question, and we'll see it next meeting. Like I mentioned earlier, we have 2 applicants coming and 3 more in the queue or 4 more in the queue. It's a case by case situation, like Malia suggested. Some are not on a water body. You have a 5-acre lot. Well, there's some flexibility there. Some are on small lake lots. And
So are these new applications?
these are the first ones coming as a product of the
Yeah.
ordinance amendments that you made earlier this year. The
So they
first
aren't
ones.
operating now.
They are
They
operating,
are operating.
they want to go beyond the 7 days.
So are they right now then?
In
renting as
violation.
much as they want.
Yeah.
No, they're within, well,
Let's talk about it when each applicant is in.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, those are good.
so I have a question. So any of these that just got re-permitted, let's say, that, you know, under the 2019, before pre-2019, and now they're post-2019 rules. So we just discussed that it's gonna take, you know, a week, let's say, for me to get my new permit. But what if my neighbor can prove in that week my house was still rented out? Before I got my new 2022 permit? Am I then in violation of my 2022 permit or the post, or the pre-2019?
You would be, it would be a citation for operating without a valid permit. And it could be a citation for each day, but then the question is, let's say Jason issues those citations, you know. My office is going to say, I've got too many termination of parental rights cases, guardianship cases, unless we hire another private
Yeah.
attorney to be a prosecutor of all these zones. And I'm not saying zoning is not important, it's very important. But we would deal with it. If it was issued, we would prosecute it.
Right, my question is when I get that cease and desist order from Jason, I was pre-2019, but the application that I'm asking for and haven't really gotten yet because health hasn't been out is post-2019. And I get caught in that middle ground of no man's land of not having a permit.
2 weeks.
So your only violation is operating without a valid permit. It would not be considered a violation of your new permit because you didn't get it yet. But if you kept doing that beyond the 7 days, once you did get the permit, it could be the first morning, and then if you continue, it would be the revenue.
I can tell you, it's chaos for the neighbors, because I've lived through this. As Jason well knows, when they have to go out and take pictures, because they feel like they're spying on people, you know, and take pictures and send into zoning. And then it really gets frustrating when they take pictures and send them into zoning and nothing happens, you know, it's a nightmare. I feel sorry for people that have them next door because
I was at 2 lake association meetings on Saturday,
Yeah.
and I don't have a lot of lakes in District 1. And it was the only topic of conversation.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's getting to be more and more.
I'm getting so many calls, it's just
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah, because people are buying lake homes that they can't
Just to
afford,
rent,
just to
as a
rent.
business,
And it's a
so.
commercial business being allowed to operate in a residential area. We all built those homes because it was a residential area. I didn't build my home so I could have a Airbnb next door to me and get up in the morning, want to go out in my front. I got so many Airbnb people on my dock, I can't get to my boat. I mean, that's the kind of stuff we deal with. And it's, you know, they're not paying any more taxes than I'm paying. They're not paying, is the county getting some kind of money because they're a commercial business operating there now? No,
That's-
No?
And it's not, it's around the whole country right now,
Yeah.
too. It's huge
yeah,
because of this, and it is considered, if they come in and say it's a business, we should ask them to rezone that lot.
I agree.
We have to
I
get a
agree.
better definition. I think we gotta work on that. If you bought a house just to rent, you call it, that's my business, and I'm gonna lose money if I can't rent it.
Yeah,
You have to be zoned commercial.
or they lose the houses. We had one.
They don't lose it, they can sell it.
Thank you.
Because they could
They
sell it.
lost it. Yeah, they sold it. Yeah, they had to sell it because they got revoked, because their permit got revoked because they didn't follow the rules. Well, then they couldn't afford it. So then it was sold.
Well, some of them don't even live in the ones there. They don't,
Oh,
they
no,
don't
they
even
never
plan on
lived
it.
in
Never been there.
These
But I
are-
mean, that's part of what we have to look at, that part of that, or rewrite. Maybe some
And
new
it's
definitions.
amazing how many are operating.
Well, in
unpermitted.
Minnesota, all over.
Oh,
cities
wow.
try to
there's
do
a lot of them.
There's a
Yeah.
company in Minnesota
that. Yeah,
none of it.
because you get up by Blackstone,
How do you do
so
that?
it's actually a resort.
Green was here, they're just.
Yeah.
They're having trouble. And I said, that's why it's all
The
over.
rezones will make.
Most rezones, most of them will never get rezoned. Because they don't want any more commercial. And we do have that 300-foot residential around all the way. I mean, we've done that to protect the little, so.
And again, like I mentioned earlier, 40% of our time lately
Yeah.
is on this and we're, one of our theories is actually, we know this, that means some of their competitors are.
Each other in. That's the biggest thing.
The good news is hats off to the board for passing the new ordinances in 2022
Oh,
to
yeah.
address the issue.
Yeah.
But the problem is we can only implement what the laws state. So, you know, if you want to change it, you can do that. But anytime somebody goes off of the 2008 rules, they have to come on to the 2022, which I think is good for the county.
Well, if we update again, it'll happen again. Now we get 2 more years, so we gotta be careful how we do it.
Yeah.
You know, that way too.
I think we're working back to the budget here because, you know, if we fix this problem, we'll need 40% less staff. But it's.
We're going to have to get another staff here for Aaliyah, and that'll cost us more.
Because we gotta justify the costs. You want fees down, no people, we're out.
We all know where I come in on, I always lose on the fees that.
Well, that's why I said it's not to exceed, it's to justify. Get it
Yeah.
covered.
Notice we do our fee schedule in May, we try to get
Yeah.
in front of the budget process and land and water is the CPI annually. And then zoning, we base it on our time step. So it's the cost of actually, processing, administering the applications. That's the basis.
There's no use trying to convince people.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
We'll go after the.
You're wasting your time.
But see, then, now we have the land and water studies, we got new ag guys, they should be out of extension, should be doing this for us. shouldn't they?
That's a whole other stuff.
All right. So, number 9,
That we go into closed session.
I'll second
vote per statute.
Per statute.
85,
Yep.
1.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
All right, I don't know if Amanda was.
All those in favor? Yeah.
I,
Those who's in here,
We'll need this.
then we'll just have. We have just those 2 public hearings in.
See,
Well, we've got the acreage, variable acreage share loan, first meeting.
that we will not be bringing forward.
Okay.
Which one doesn't go forward?
Variable acreage loan. That actually refers back to Don's presentation. You saw the 8,300 from the forestry
Yeah.
department.
Yeah.
I'll just make this simple. Every year, going back, past foresters, we need to do a restoration project, a road project, forestry. We would take out that variable acreage loan. We would pay it back interest free to the state based on from Timbersville. So this is kind of an administrative thing for both finance and forester. So the idea is, why don't we just allocate an 8,300 to the forester? And then just avoid the forest acreage loan. And then the revenue would go to service that loan for basically for the general fund. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just, and trust me, I'm talking to Rhoda and Don's team and, onboarding Brent, listening to Mark's frustrations about it. It's just time consuming. Auditors always confused. So that's the concept behind that particular issue. So that will be on the work plan. And I think Sharon, also the park tour. I'm talking to Mo, we're probably going to shoot through like a spring park tour, if that's okay. I mean,
How many parts?
well, we got
Might have
13
separate
new projects,
Might
so
have, yeah.
it might be a couple meetings. So I think Mo wanted to get most of these implemented. suppose we could do a couple. Small, we could like to, but people want to package them all, get the bus
Leaf tour.
again.
You want to do the leaf tour, don't you?
Always have.
Oh,
Going on the fall.
Let's take them up to the loop. They don't know where that ATV trip. They're afraid to drive more than 10 miles. from home.
Take them to the Clam Falls Horse
Well,
Trail
that is
on
that
summer's
side of
day.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you been up there? Brian?
The car poison.
Yeah, I'm
Do we get
skipping.
machines to try it out? No.
In the Grand Center, staying home. at the playground.
All in bike.
Be a lot of windshield time if we're going up to Summers and.
Not for me.
Not for you, no. You drop out.
Or I'll bring the four-wheeler over. Take y'all on a tour.
You been out there then?
No.
Oh, take a tractor, anyway. Then just the normal updates, the parks.
Yeah, I do have a draft agenda for September 21st. So we have those two rooming house UP
Did you
applications.
spread them out or how are we gonna do? We'll open it up and just do one and then the one comes afterwards.
We got two in the queue for the 21st.
But I mean, if it takes 3 hours to do 1 or 2 hours, let's say, how do we schedule that? To say when the second one starts,
Good question.
you know, for a public hearing. I guess.
Lunch break at noon, so it starts at 12.
Don't we have a phone change?
Yeah, here's what I have so far for zoning. It's heavy on zoning. By the way, Jason's still on his honeymoon. He's having a good time. We do have a rezone in the town of Boone Lake, from RA5 to M10. Talked about the 2 short-term rental properties. I'm looking for conditional use. And then the town of the Garfield. I believe it's Garfield. Ordinance Amendment to, believe it or not, their tourist rooming house, short-term bed and breakfast ordinance. That's just, you know, endorsement. Zoning's pretty heavy there.
Can I ask one thing about that? So if they were pre-2019 permitted, at what point do they move to the new rules?
A violation or
Violation.
if they shut down for a year or more,
But otherwise they can go forever by renting theirs every single day.
if they're not in trouble.
They're
If they're not
compliant, then they're good
compliant
neighbors.
to the old one.
That's a
Sorry,
good
that
point,
was just in there.
because theoretically, over time, we kept the 2019 rules, inevitably, minus the compliant folks, everyone would fall under the 2019. That makes sense?
Well,
No, only if they
still have
had
to update.
a violation.
Right. Only did a violation.
Or if
a
they-
year.
1 year that they don't operate as one or something, isn't there something in there for that that they have to reapply?
You have a list of who falls under what?
Well, they will.
And
well, it's-
like a number of, hey, we got
Is there 100 and some legal one?
Yeah, in our software, we have those tracked. Brian Hobbs has a list. Wanted a list,
No, I don't want to see it. I just want
but
to.
we pull their permit. and You can tell which year was. permitted.
Until they violate or shut it down and restart. Now, do we have it if it's a different owner? They would have to come in.
No.
No,
We don't have that
if
in
the
ours.
permit was assigned to that, Jason told me if the permit's assigned to the
Rental of
house,
the land.
the land, yeah.
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 Okay, so we have the opportunity to change that, don't we? Or change owner.
Not a permitted use, but with a conditional use.
Conditional use one.
Sure.
So we gotta make sure we have that in our conditional use.
So like,
Change of ownership would have to have a new person. come in and
so like a
reapply.
2019 one that had a violation, that had their permit revoked. That permit's gone then. With
Yep.
that house.
Yep.
No, it's no longer, okay.
It's a removed,
Yeah.
and then have the 3-month wait as well before they can be.
Like, let's say there was a tourist rooming house that was operating since the early seventies without a permit, there is no rule that they would need to follow, as long as they didn't have that year break where it wasn't operating. Not that those exist.
Yeah,
just-
exactly.
What do you mean not that those stories? Of course they do.
Well,
You
not
don't think they
here.
do?
I do not.
Everybody who doesn't have a permit is operating.
It's
under that way.
operating that way. They'll say that they started back. I know some,
Well,
they've
we
rented
got-
their
we
house
got as
forever.
expenses to, salvage yards. Been doing this since the 1950s.
Hey, we got one north of
Yeah.
Milltown we better start working on. That'll be a big one too, right between the Gandy and 35. Guy that was gonna do 15 cars, he's got 150.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And
He went from in town to out of town doing it.
Yeah.
Milltown's had wrong.
Still got a sign up. His insurance didn't pay for the other one that burned down, but this one will be next. Oh, yeah, he's between the
Okay, I
Gandy.
didn't-
So
Let's
just
get back
for,
to the
for topics for the next. You're good.
4 zoning items. We have an update on parks and trails. I think I heard you say that, Kim.
Yep.
I'll do an update on the comprehensive trail network plan. Resolution regarding Wisconsin Act 216.
I think, Kim, did you want Eric to come back? To give the results, or maybe it was
Yeah.
Brad? The
Yeah,
results?
he said he-
But that would be the first October meeting.
Yeah, we
First October.
Along with
Yeah.
the,
That's in.
what Don mentioned for the first meeting in October, another review of the budget. The first slide, so I'll put Eric on that first meeting in October
Yeah,
along with
yeah.
Don.
Because then he
So
would
then
have to step
the
back.
first October meeting, just because it's budget time, are we going to not see them necessarily, but get an update from extension? As to what they've
That's on
done
the-
this year?
That's on the work. Coming
Because we only have the egg, we only have the egg, though.
Yeah.
We only have the
Good
egg
enough.
portion, the rest is general government,
in.
You know, I don't,
but they still.
yeah.
I sat through there, St. Croix County. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
You want him to come on?
No, I don't need to see them. I want to see on a piece of paper how many calls they've made to farms in Polk County over the last 10 months.
Doesn't want to argue with them in person.
Or 25%.
Yeah.
The St. Croix was trying to figure out how it worked. too.
Trust me,
I
I've
sat
been in
through
other
it.
county meetings and everybody has the same people.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully with that compliance, we'll save a few calls, but if we get a bunch more, we might have to put that back on.
So I see this is November, it talks about agritourism. Just a question. Have we ever heard any more? Okay. And it's funny because I hear about it out from different people talking about agritourism, and once in a while you see something on Facebook about it and stuff. And I thought, we haven't heard anything since, that's been a long time.
Since this
Since she
spring,
was on the floor.
Yeah, since she was on the floor that time.
but go by, now it's the farmers markets and stuff, so they just realize that you just park a trailer until you get caught, you do what you want.
You got.
It is, we don't have enough compliance.
You gotta get that
Obviously.
forgiveness notepad
I
and
know.
just hand out forgiveness
Yep.
pages. Not permission, just forgiveness. That's what you do.
It's-
Works. I didn't know.
How else are we going? And that falls into the budget. We need somebody just on compliance. And he would pay for themselves over twice.
Damn.
How are we doing that, Bob? Because then,
Looking pretty full.
Pretty
so then I
cool.
don't think, okay. I think we should just get that list from Amanda so that we can kind of decide too. If we're
Do you
gonna
want to
take
put that on the
for
next
motion.
one or the following?
Maybe the following October, because we're still on pause. So we should get that if there's only two and decide if we have to look at it. We better do that.
At least we'll be able to know what they are, how big they are. You know,
What kind of shape, if it's,
yeah,
you know. And how much work it would be to take it, so. Full enough yet?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye, opposed?
You're planning for lunch next time, right?
I'm thinking we have It's like.
Yeah.